week is coming to a close in what many expect to be an epic battle between Oregon State and Oregon. How will Marcus McMaryion fare coming off one of his best performances of the season? And Ryan Nall breaking out in last season's Civil War. How will he impact Saturday's game? Hashtag Beavers football starts now. We are on the eve of the 120th meeting between Oregon State and Oregon. Tomorrow, the Ducks and the Beavers squaring off as the Beavers try to snap an 8-game losing skid to the Ducks. Coming to you from Blitzlad in Southeast Portland. Welcome into Hashtag Beavers football. Nigel Burton, Matt Severson, Lindsay Schnell, Amanda Maynard here with you to break down the upcoming game, but also talk a little bit more about Arizona. Obviously a huge win for the Beavers, a dominant win. What was your biggest takeaway in this one?
That they dominated. You know, it's been a long time since they've been able to do that. So they've been able to win big, and even though that Arizona's down this year, to do that over a Pac-12 opponent, you guys, a year ago, I don't think they could have done that.
What was really good to see for me was Marcus, because he's had kind of an up and down year, and he showed flashes of what he could do, but he really put together a complete game against Arizona. 16 for 19, 5 touchdowns, no turnovers. That gives you some hope that things are starting to click for him, and he can really be a primetime performer, as they say.
Yeah, whatever they had for pregame meal, they need to eat that every single meal for the rest of their lives. Because, I mean, literally every weakness the Beavers had, they found a way not only to, overcome their weakness, but made it a strength. I mean, you look at defensively, they kept Arizona under their normal rush yards. Marcus McMaryion has the game of his life. Like, just quit football, retire on top, I'm telling you. And then Xavier Cole, Xavier Crawford gets a pick. I mean, he picks because he dropped the Doc's been all over. So every single weakness they have, they turned it into a strength. Even, you talk about penalties, that has driven Gary Anderson nuts. Found a way, only 5 penalties in the game. Administratively, they did everything. They were clean. It was a great all-around complete win.
And I think a big thing off that, too, is that Gary Anderson has talked a lot about we're so close. And they finally were able to not just to close that gap and blow someone out. So now the question is, if they get into a close game with the Ducks, can they close that gap again? I think that this win does a lot for their confidence.
Well, Oregon and Oregon State guaranteed to finish the season with losing records for the first time since 1991. Mike Parker taking a little look at Civil War history with us.
Thank you, Amanda. A few weeks back, people were beginning to speak of the 120th Civil War in less than respectful tones. There were references to a game that, I don't like the parlance, but it's been referred to as, quote, the Toilet Bowl in 1983, a game that I attended, and this, by the way, will be my 44th consecutive Civil War in attendance. That one does stand out as one of the more painful memories for both schools. The last 0-0 tie in college football, a rain-laden day, 11 turnovers, and people were starting to say that with both teams struggling, there could be perhaps a revisit of that kind of storyline and script. Suddenly, though, with Oregon's come from behind and stirring victory in Salt Lake City, the Beavers' domination over Arizona at Reser Stadium last weekend, this game now looks a lot more enticing and attractive. I think it's shaping up to be a great football game. The point spread indicates that it's anybody's game. I think it's time for the Beavers to break through, snap a losing streak, and send Gary Anderson out with great momentum. He's already increased his win total, has a chance to make it 3 conference wins, and really keep selling that vision of a program on the rise.
Like Mike said, I mean, this is expected to be a close game. I think the point spread, it was 3 points.
It opened at 3. It might be 3.5 for the Ducks now.
But you think this will be, a good game? You don't think it'll be any toilet bowl here?
Yeah, I've heard a couple people, and I'm not saying that's what Mike Parker's referring to this game as a toilet bowl, but there's been a lot of reference to that during this week, and I believe that's totally unfair. Those were 2 really, really bad teams back in '83. 11 turnovers, 4 missed field goals. I mean, it was a complete bleep show. I mean, it was bad. These 2 teams are 2 decent. One's a decent team working its way up. The other's a good team who just couldn't figure out a way to end games. I mean, so to see and try to compare it to that, in no way will we get that kind of football game. And I think you've got a program in Oregon State that's on the rise, and who knows what they'll be a year or 2 from now.
And just what would a win over Oregon at this juncture in this rebuilding process mean for this team?
It would be huge. I mean, even if the Ducks are down, it's still beating the Ducks. They went to the title game 2 years ago. It still means a lot to you. It's just like if you beat Texas, if you beat SC. When Oregon State beat Wisconsin in 2012, I remember Danny Langsdorf, then the offensive coordinator, saying, I don't care if people don't think they're good. We think that they were good. That program has been good. So I think it would be huge for their confidence. And going into this offseason when we've already seen so much growth, it gives you a little bit extra motivation, I think, to go in and know that you're right there.
Well, we've been on the mat, too, for the last 3 years. We've had a rough last 3 years. And we're starting, you can see the recruiting starting to pick up. We're starting to get some big-name guys that are looking to come into Oregon State. If we can put 3 conference wins on the schedule this year, you get 2 wins going into spring ball and help finish off recruiting. That's huge to get this program up off the mat and start getting in position next year where we're fighting with the big guys on the top half of the conference, and we're making noise. And Gary Anderson, I think, has done a really good job of building the program, and this is just kind of the icing on the cake, if you will, to end the year and really get it going into next year, going into next year.
Yeah, no different than if you have a season that you've played really well, but you end the season with a bad loss in a bowl game, and you have that feeling the rest of the year. It's kind of the same thing in reverse. If you've had a year, but you end with 2 really big wins, one against your arch rival, the other in blowout fashion, it's a great way to feel good throughout the offseason and have an upward swing. And then really, you look at the other thing. I don't care if you're playing your older brother in the backyard. If he's beaten you 8 straight times and you finally end that streak, it's a big deal. And so ending streaks is huge.
Neither of these teams has ever won 9 in a row. You don't want to be on the bad end of that trivia answer.
And trust me, as a Husky, I know about streaks with Oregon.
Mark Helfrich, 4th season. Gary Anderson, of course, his 2nd season. What are any similarities, any differences between these head coaches?
Well, I mean, Gary Anderson's not on the hot seat, and Mark Helfrich is. I think there's a decent chance that if the Ducks lose on Saturday, that's going to be Helfrich's last game with the Ducks. I don't think that that's right. I think that they need to keep him, but I think that I know that could easily happen. The question is, Helfrich has kind of fallen under fire for, is he winning can he win with his own players? And right now they're struggling with a lot of his guys, whereas when they went to the title game 2 years ago, those were Chip Kelly's kids, not Marcus Mariota's kids. But Gary Anderson, what we saw was he was really successful at Wisconsin, not with his own players, but he has been successful with his own players at Utah State. So that's where I see similarities, differences.
I think you have 2 really different guys who approach things very differently and have both been really successful. I think if you're a Beaver fan, you're rooting for Oregon to be dumb and fire Mark Helfrich because if you look at the history of Alabama, Tennessee, Washington, all these different programs who had a lot of success over a period of time and then decided to mess with that success, mess with that continuity, it usually has not worked out very well for them. So if they're not paying attention to history, good luck. I mean, so, you've got 2 really successful guys who do it. One, I think Gary Anderson does it in a tough, hard-nosed, tough love fashion, whereas Mark Helfrich is a little more easygoing, fast break offenses, things like that, but they've both really been successful over their careers.
A little later in the show, we're going one-on-one with Gary Anderson.
That'll be huge. It's something that's happened. It hasn't happened for a long time now, number one. And none of our kids have been through it. They've never felt that victory.
And after the break, how our analysts expect Ryan Nall to impact this game.
Big physical running back, a guy that has a ton of ability. He's a guy that you got to make sure when you're game planning, you account for him.
Afterburner's on. Destination end zone.
What's not to like about Royce? I mean, he's got great size. He's a physical runner, but he's also got that breakaway speed.
Here's Rolls-Royce.
It's no secret. He's one of the best backs in the country, and you'll wake up the next morning with a headache for sure.
Royce Freeman, here's a look at some of his numbers. He's on the verge of a 1,000-yard season, 839 yards, 9 touchdowns. What do you guys expect from him come tomorrow?
Well, he's a veteran, and he's done it his whole career. He's just been successful no matter what situation they put him in and what they ask for him. He's one of those backs. He's not good at everything. He's elite at everything. He can make people miss. He can run people over. He's been here before, and quite honestly, to me, he's the scariest part of Oregon going into tomorrow. Just because he's had success throughout his career, he's a game-changing back.
And he looked good last week.
And yeah, he kind of got back on track. He's had an up-and-down year. He kind of got back on track the last 2 weeks. So he's going to be a big part if the Beavers can contain him tomorrow.
There was a lot of talk going into the beginning of the season that Freeman might be the most underrated back in the country, and I think that was true. Christian McCaffrey tends to get all the attention in the Pac-12, and then Freeman was banged up at different points this year, not healthy, didn't look like himself. He looked like himself last week. Holy smokes. When I was watching that Utah game, I was thinking, I'm not feeling great about my Civil War pick with Oregon State to win, but, I think that Ryan Nall will be able to counter him on the other side of the ball. But you guys, I just think that I think Matt's spot on. Like, he's elite. He's been there. He's played in big games. And, He just run you right over.
Yeah, he's scaring me to death. He is that X factor right now that if I'm a Beaver fan, I'm trying to figure out, like, who can do a Nancy Kerrigan and, like, I don't know, something, because he's the guy who scares the snot out of you because he can run between the tackles, but he's also great at bouncing and running down the outside. If the Beavers don't keep him contained and keep leverage on him, he'll be an absolute nightmare for him. I mean, this game is built up the way that Justin Herbert's come on, the way that Royce Freeman went back to being Royce, Marcus McMarion's game, the receivers coming, I mean, Ryan Nall. This thing is going to turn out to be, even despite the records, I think one of the best Civil Wars that we could have ever wanted.
That's high praise right there. Well, again, speaking of the comparisons between Freeman and Nall, we had a chance to sit down with some Oregon State players to see why they say Nall is better.
They give it to Nall. He's got a big hole. Here goes Nall as Royce Freeman finds the end zone.
A huge part of the game is going to be Ryan Nall and Royce Freeman, two of the best backs in the Pac-12. Why is Nall better, or is he better?
That's the wrecking Nall. Like, look at that guy, man. You know what I mean? He's 230. He's legit 4'4". He's a tremendous player, man. He worked hard. He deserves it. He's from the state of Oregon. So, you know, I think he's going to put the, Oregon on his back and take us to victory.
I mean, Ryan Nall, I mean, he's a workhorse. I mean, he won't show it a lot, but he fights through injuries. I mean, he won't say nothing. He's a workhorse, and not too many people tackle him on the first try. So, I mean, he's definitely a special kind of running back.
He is possessed. He is still possessed.
Freeman and Ryan Nall, who can do better on the ground. So give us your pitch for why Ryan Nall is one of, if not the best back in the Pac-12.
So we have a better offensive line. That's it.
That was an easy answer.
Swag level.
Flat Tail Brewing, damn good moment. We're taking a look at the most rushing yards by a Beaver in Civil War games, and that honor going to Ryan Nall last season, 174 yards.
Don't you spell Steven like S-T-E? Like, it's not W-A-L-L. That's not how you spell Steven, right?
Steven.
Wally Jackson, Steven Jackson.
Oh, there you go.
I'm sorry.
Got
it. I made a joke with the lady who's been in Indiana for the life. My fault.
Over the head.
That was good. That was good. I appreciate it. All right. Well, what clicked for him in last season's Civil War? It's also day after Thanksgiving. We're all tired. We're all trying to get.
I don't know that anyone really anticipated that he could do what he did last year, and I think the Ducks kind of slept through that game, to be honest. 2 years ago they were caught flat-footed, and Victor Bolden almost beat them with the exact same play that they had run in 2007, the last time Oregon State won. But last year, he just looked good, and I think that no one anticipated that. This year, he's had similar problems with Freeman in terms of being banged up a lot, but I think he's healthy going into this game.
If you're sleeping through a Civil War, you got bigger problems, or you're in a whole bunch of trouble to start with. Because no matter what the records are, obviously that's a game that's circled on the calendar for everybody, and you're bringing your A game to that one. But
There's no way you can sit here and tell me that the Ducks brought their A game last year.
Absolutely. Are you kidding me? What they had on the line to go play in a New Year's Day bowl and be in the top 5 in the country? I think absolutely they're gonna come in there and give them the best shot. But I think the best thing that Oregon State did last year was, hey, they came in, they knew they had a big challenge in front of them. They just did their assignments. Ryan Nall came out and just said, hey, I'm going to put the team on my back and do everything I can to win. And he has the ability that when he does that, he can go win a game for it. I just think the offensive line played well, and the Beavers showed what they can do in the future and what they're building towards.
Yeah, the Ducks might have gone into that game arrogantly and thinking like, this might be, but at no point did they say, we're not going to give it our best. I think what they figured out was Ryan Nall is the real deal. And when you try to tackle him, like Mark Helford said this week, you try to tackle him with an arm, your arm's going to lose. So, I mean, in the end, what he brings to the table, being that hammer that can continue to just pound on you. And the other thing is, I hear guys talk about, like, I heard somebody say this week, well, he's not the fastest guy. Actually, I know who that somebody was. That was Joey Harrington. Yeah, shout out. He's not the fastest guy. Well, if he's
Aren't you supposed to call him Joey 5 Picks on this show?
Oh, that's fired.
Just asking.
But it's just, he's not the fastest guy, but there's film of him running past Oregon DBs. And then when it was like, oh, well, maybe that was like an offset. Oh, wait a minute, he just did the same thing against Cal's DBs. And then he did the same thing against Washington State's DBs. Maybe it's not the DBs. Maybe it's just that dude who's 235 pounds is actually pretty fast.
Well, they said Dakuda said he ran a 4.4, and if you're 235 running a 4, I'm not sure if that's true or not, but that's ridiculous.
I'll be honest with you. I watched him in high school at Central Catholic, and a lot of teams were trying to recruit him, and obviously he committed to the Beavers pretty early. But I told him the whole time, I will give you a chance to play running back because I think that's really where you can do some damage because there aren't many guys who are that big. And when you watched him in games versus other Division I talent that was on that field that are playing in that game, Henry Mondo and all the different guys who played then, he was running past people. It wasn't just running over guys. And so that's when you saw flashes back at Central Catholic. You could try to dismiss it with the talent level in Oregon, whatever, but you saw that speed then, and you're seeing it again now on Pac-12 Saturdays.
Isn't the story that last year before the Civil War, Gary Anderson called him in and was talking to him about a position switch?
Well, he was talking about, hey, we're going to put you a running back for this game, but we really think that ultimately your position is going to be linebacker.
So maybe he was just trying to prove last year in the Civil War, maybe that's what it was.
Well,
like, hey, I want to be a running
no,
back.
this is where I'm staying. I'm staying at running back. I'm not going anywhere else.
But also don't forget that Ryan was a Riley recruit, and Gary was still getting to know who Ryan is and what he could bring to the table.
Right.
And he's kind of the jack of so many trades. Is trying to figure out what do you do with this big guy. And then he finally found his niche when he was given the opportunity in one of the biggest games.
We asked you to weigh in on Twitter. How many rushing yards do you think the Beavers will get tomorrow? And you said between 100, 200. What do you guys think? You think that's about right?
Well, the Ducks give up 240 a game, so I think the Beavers need to be in the 250 range.
The last time I went against the pole, I got hit in the face.
That is true. So you're just going to keep your mouth shut, right?
Good job, pole people.
All right, coming up a little later in the show, we're going to talk about how the Beavers secondary stacks up for the Ducks' high-flying attack. And up next, Gary Anderson sitting down with Dwight Jaynes. They're going to talk a little bit more about the rivalry and why this team thinks they can stay with the Ducks. And we're taking a closer look at Marcus McMaryion. Obviously, a great game, his best game of the season, I think we can say, against Arizona. What was the biggest difference you saw in him in that game?
Man, well, first of all, I was really impressed that the receivers stepped up and caught the passes he was throwing, so credit to them. I think that was huge, and when he was able to get going early, you know, you connect with a few guys, that just gives you confidence. I think he's playing with a lot of confidence, and we've talked on Talking Beavers about that. He seems to be someone who has a little connection with Jordan Villeman. He can get JV going, and they're going to need Villeman to win this game.
I think that's a fair statement. The receivers finally showed up and made plays for him and helped him out. Villeman had a great game, obviously the game of the year so far for him. But Marcus just looked comfortable. And what I've been really impressed with him throughout the course of the season is he can hang in the pocket and take a hit and still deliver the ball. He did a great job of that.
He's a Mike Riley recruit, and that's what Riley liked.
Absolutely. But he did a great job of that. And then you could just see, like as they said, as Lindsay said, the confidence just grew. Through 2 touchdowns, felt better. Through 3 touchdowns, made another big play, and he just built on everything he did, and it was nice to see.
Yeah, and it wasn't just his confidence; it was Jordan Villeman's confidence. He got that one play that he caught the slant and ran into people, and he was like, "Wait, I'm not
no one tackled me.
I'm still going. Oh, okay, I'm still going." It's kind of like that kid who gets the base hit in T-ball and then he doesn't run to first. And so it was one of those things, and his confidence started to build. Then they started to go to him more on the slant, and he followed up the slant right afterwards with the fade ball. And then the other thing is just the fact that he is a smart guy in the pocket. He didn't make the mistakes that I think have plagued some of the other quarterbacks in terms of trying to force things. If it's not there, he throws it in the dirt. And the last thing was he was able to work, buy time with his feet, and as opposed to running and tucking right away, he still kept his eyes downfield, had a great throw to Ryan Nall. And those are the things I think make him special, and I think could be lethal for the Ducks this week.
One thing we talked about on Talking Beavers is just how much this Ducks defense has struggled. We're going to take a look at that in our Standard TV and Appliance play breakdown, and taking a closer look at maybe some of the things that the Beavers can exploit against the Ducks.
Yeah, so just taking a look at what Utah did here. They got Troy Williams going early. You can see first quarter with just a quick screen out, running back coming out of the backfield. He's able to read blocks. And you can tell the Beavers do the same exact thing. They're able to get that ball out of his hands, get it to Artavis Pierce in space, getting first downs. I think that's what you could see early on against the Ducks, especially who tackle so poorly in space. Something else I noticed that Utah does, it's bread and butter Beaver offensive football. Run the read zone, then hit them with the read zone and slant behind it. Suck those linebackers up to play the run. It opens up the middle and really take advantage of those corners who have to sit and play for the deep ball. You'll see the Beavers do this all the time. Bread and butter play early on in the game against UCLA. Run the read zone, get the linebackers to suck up. Bam, hits Victor Bolden right behind. And then what that opens up is the ability to run the same thing, the read zone, but now here with Trayvon Bradford, hit him with the sluggo route in the middle. The safety jumps the slant. No different than Colorado did against the Beavers earlier this year. Run the slant, and then all of a sudden, bam, hit him with the slant and go. And now you can hit him for a big play. I think that's what I would really look to see in this game in the Civil War.
And I want to know, if Marcus McMaryion and this team beats the Ducks, is this his job to lose in the spring? Is he the guy?
I wish Gary Anderson would answer that question for us. I think that's a great question. You know, one thing that's tough is that a lot of times when new coaches come in, they want to play with their players. They want to win with their guys. People were excited about Daryl Garrettson this year. He's an Anderson recruit. He knows Anderson's offense. The passing game was terrible, quite frankly, when Anderson was there. When Garrettson was in. I don't think it's entirely his fault, but I would like to think that Marcus McMaryion, it will be his job to lose going into the spring, but I'm not sure. They are going to sign a JUCO kid that they're really excited about. Garrettson's coming back. Connor Blount's coming back.
It's a crowded room. There's a lot of options in there.
I think a win gives him a leg up, but by no means is he the leader in the clubhouse, right? Or is he going to be the guy that says, hey, it's your job to lose? If he plays like he did against Arizona, maybe. If he throws another 5 touchdowns and has 300 yards and has a 70% completion rate, then maybe we're in that situation. But if we just win and it has a lot to do with Ryan Nall and AP making plays, and the defense makes some plays and we win, then I think it's kind of a more open competition going in. Because like you said, we have some guys coming in that can all play, and Garrettson coming back, and you want to have competition there and see who really steps up. So unless he has another game of his life this weekend, I think it's really going to be a competition going into spring ball.
I mean, I co-sign both of those things that both of them said. I just think it's weird. He is that enigma that drives coaches crazy, because I have watched Marcus in practice earlier on in the season, and he did not wow you. If anything, you're like, geez. But then when the lights come on and a lot of guys shrink away from the game, he seems to step up, and he's gotten better as the season's progressed. I'm curious because I think, it's tough for the coaches. They see one thing, and then all of a sudden something else shows up on Saturday, and it's inconsistent, and it makes you leery to say this is the guy. So we'll see kind of how he continues to progress. And the other thing is he doesn't really like keeping the ball in read zone, which this offense does not work the way that it could if you have a quarterback who doesn't like to keep the ball, and that's one thing that Jake Luton brings to the table.
All right, still had a look to the future of both of these programs. Who has the best young players? And Dwight going one-on-one with Gary Anderson. Stick around. Research Stadium hosting the 120th Civil War tomorrow afternoon in what should be a competitive meeting. Another good one, 2007. We take a look back.
Legends are made on days and in games like this. There's only been one overtime game in the Civil War. That was won by the Beavers in that game back in '98. Under center he goes. Rodgers in motion. Rodgers has got it. Breaks the tackle to the outside. Rodgers turns the corner. 10-5. Touchdown, James Rodgers. Ball game over. The Beavers have beaten the Ducks for the first time here at Autzen Stadium since 1993.
All right, I know you two in particular have some pretty strong memories from that game. 27 carries, 142 yards.
That was a good night.
I think we did. We were trying to get video. There was
no video of
But we have you. Well,
the first touchdown of the game.
The archives don't always go back.
Wow.
But here's a look at these impressive numbers. Now, what do you remember from this one?
I just remember it was obviously one of the better games I've ever had. But no, I mean, it was just, we were actually confident going in that game, and we had a senior team who knew what we could do, and it was just kind of, I know Riley said to me, hey, we're going to give the ball to you a lot, and we need you to perform, and I was like, all right, well, let's go get this done. And we had that group of seniors.
You were confident,
You were filling in for Evanson Bernard, who was hurt. When did you find out you were going to get the start?
I knew I was going to start actually like 2 weeks going up to it, because we had a bye week the week before, and I knew Ev was banged up enough where they said, hey, it's time for you to step up and do what you need to do here, which I was like, hey, this is great. I'm an Oregon boy. I grew up in Oregon. The game meant obviously a lot to me, so it was neat to have that opportunity. And fortunately, it was a great game, and it worked out well for the Beavs.
I think our clip kind of rewrote history a little bit, because that game did not end on that fly sweep.
No, it did not.
It ended on Dorian Smith on defense.
4th and 1.
4th and 1, stuffing Jonathan Stewart. So I know we like to rewrite history like the offense did everything, but that's not what happened. The other part that was funny was, I coached Matt in the secondary, and he's a defensive guy, and then he goes over to offense, does a nice job. But so he gets to start, and as confident as they were, I'm not gonna lie, I was a nervous wreck. And I remember that first play when he busts that run, I was like, oh my God, we might have a chance. Like, we might be able to do this. And it was so great to see. I mean, you see those guys, they were great college players. You don't see a ton of NFL guys on that field. It was guys who cared about each other. They cared about the team. They cared about the program. They loved Oregon State, and they sold out for that game and that win. And to see guys like Lyle Moivau and James Rodgers and all the different guys who were big in that game, Jeff Van Orso, and I mean, it was really cool to watch. And we need to make some new highlights, some new memories.
So, Matt,
building on that point, just real quick, and you hit the nail on the head, is we had some guys go to the league off that team. We didn't have a lot, but it was just a really good group of older guys who really cared about each other, huge Oregon State fans. I'm going down to the game tomorrow. I'll get to see some of them. But that's the kind of group that you build a program on. And so that's what we need to get back to Oregon State and get moving in the right direction, because those group of guys really cared about each other, loved the game, and very successful together.
So were you on the field for the fly sweep play? Were you blocking someone? Were you on the sideline?
I think I got distracted because if the camera angle was a little bit longer, I was about 10 feet behind James, and I should have went over and partied with him first. But the Oregon student section was right there, so I had to give them a little love. And then I went and gave James a high five. But it was, the camera angle was a little wider, and it's probably a good thing it wasn't. I would have been caught in that one. But
well, obviously, Oregon has owned this rivalry for quite some time. Dwight Jane sitting down with Gary Anderson in our Toyota interview of the week to find out how the Beavers plan to end this one.
Does Oregon's past success and the kind of swagger they have and all the aura around them from getting what they've gotten the last few years, does that have an impact on your kids, do you think? Do you have to convince them that they can play with them, that they can beat them? How does that go as a coach?
Well, I think there was part of that through the Pac-12 season this year with the way we got beat last year in a lot of games. And so how does that go as a coach? I talked to him about it. To me, there was a lot of games last year, and, you sit back and it was like the fourth grader walking into the room with the seventh grader and, getting smacked around. And, so now the fourth grader's grown up a little bit, I believe. And we'll see, how far the seventh grader's come and where he sits, or is he in eighth grade, or where's he moving to now? So we're excited. I think we've stepped up to that every game this year when we've been faced with that, which has been a number of times where we physically got beat down last year. And I don't think that's happened this year. So that's a step in the right direction. Our kids are prideful of that. I like to think we have swag too, and I think we're growing in that area. I think it's important for us to continue to understand that, we want to carry ourselves like a big-time Division I football program that does it the right way on and off the field.
What would a win in this game do for your program?
Oh, it'd be huge. It's something that's happened. It hasn't happened for a long time now, number one. And none of our kids have been through it. They've never felt that victory. And, I've had the opportunity in the past to be a coach and break one of those strings, and a couple of those strings, actually. It's a great feeling as a coach. It's got to be twice the feeling as a player. It'd be great for our fans to get this thing back to where it needs to be, because the bottom line, it does become an even more heated rivalry when there's give and take on both sides. And sure. I'm excited to get it to that point as we continue to move forward. And we know we're playing a good team. We think we're a team that's moving forward, and both sides are going to play hard. But a win would be a big step for us and something that Beaver fans deserve.
How do you guys think that Oregon's past success maybe colors how Oregon State views it? Does it at all?
Well, I think they really want to break the streak. I think that one thing that's been interesting about the Ducks this year is that a lot of times teams that have won forever, they're so used to winning that they pull games out late, because other teams that are beating them are like, wait, we're not supposed to beat Oregon, and then they kind of crumble. The Ducks are so young this year that they don't have that type of confidence, but I think that it's still, like I said, they're just 2 years removed from playing in the title game. Like, it's still a good program.
Yeah, I think fans are going to look at it differently because of the success that Oregon has had. I think the team looks at it as, we don't care necessarily who they are, other than the fact that we really want to beat them up because they said I should walk on. Other than that, it's one of those, you focus on you always. You always focus on you. And it might mean a little bit more, and you'll feel it. You'll feel the energy is different in the stadium, but it's still the focus is on you and not really worried about who that is over there. I mean,
I echo that completely. It doesn't. I don't care who they are. I don't care what they've done. This is on me now. I'm going to go take care of business and put a stop to this. Right? It's all about what I'm going to get done today.
All right, still to come. A look at this game for years to come as we take a look at the youth on each of these teams, and a freshman quarterback leading the Ducks into this season's Civil War. What to expect from him come Saturday?
Double flip back pass, wide open, touchdown Oregon. Well, they had a play. They've been holding it in their pockets. Herbert keeps it. Herbert got the outside. Freeman is in the right slot, but Herbert's going left for Freeman. Touchdown Oregon. And Herbert will keep it, and Herbert gets in. Oregon touchdown.
Eugene native of Justin Herbert about to start in his very first Civil War game for the Ducks. True freshman. And here's a look at his season numbers. 146 of 227, 1,700 yards. I was about to say 175 yards. I'm sure the Beavers wish that's what his season numbers were. But what have been your impressions of him after he stepped up?
He's a playmaker. I mean, he's been, he kind of saved their season halfway through and gave them something to rally behind and make plays for him and get the team going in the right direction. The thing that jumps out at me on those stats right there is 18 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. That's ridiculous for a third-year starter, a senior quarterback, let alone a true freshman coming in halfway through the season and just said, hey, kid, good luck, go have fun. So that's pretty darn impressive, and he's another one of these guys in a couple years that's going to be doing big things for Oregon and making news in the Pac-12. So,
I thought he was going to be a good player. When everything you heard coming out of camp, and he absolutely took apart 2 epically bad defenses in Arizona State just because of how many guys they had out, and Cal, and and he came back to reality against your Trojans. He came back, but what he did last week against Utah, when you look at 30 of 43, over 300 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, that made me a believer that, dude, this dude is the truth. And so the Beavers are obviously going to have their hands full, but the Pac-12 is going to have their hands full, period. Like, I'm actually glad I'm not coaching DBs in the Pac-12 anymore because the next couple of years are going to suck for every defensive back coach in this conference. When you look at Herbert, Sam Darnold, Jake Browning's only a sophomore. I mean, you go down the list of different guys and how talented they are. It is going to be it's going to become a renaissance of Pac-12 quarterback play.
There's a lot of talk in recruiting that you luck into guys and you miss on some guys. So the Ducks kind of just fell into recruiting Marcus Mariota. It just happened almost accidentally. He wasn't a starter in high school until his senior year, and people have said that Helfrich shouldn't get credit for him because that was just luck of the draw. Well, Herbert might be the same way, and he could be someone that is like a Heisman contender in a few years.
One thing that Tristan DeCude said this week, and whether or not it was trash talk, whether or not he actually means it, well, he was asked about their offense, particularly under Herbert, and he said he thinks it's a little basic, and particularly because it's a freshman quarterback.
I really like
they haven't been able to really open up the playbook as much as they want. Would you agree with that statement when you look at Nigel is just hanging his head?
I've heard this year. You know where I heard that this year? There was an Oklahoma backup quarterback who does not sniff the field, who called Ohio State's their defense basic, and they
got blown out of home.
They proceeded to get the brakes beat off of them. And then the best was Ohio State on their sideline had a sign that said, "How basic are we now?" And it was like printed, like
That's kind
it
of
was
amazing.
ready. It wasn't like something they scribbled on the board.
No.
It was like, "Are we basic?" and so it was one of those like. So when I heard that, I was like, history, man. Pay attention to history.
Don't poke the bear.
Don't say that.
And
it's more like a cub right now, but it still is a mammal.
I do appreciate Tristan DeCude.
I like that he doesn't really have a filter.
Keeps it interesting, keeps it real. I like
but
it.
I understand why that might mean he doesn't get to talk to the media a lot.
All right, more to come here on the show. But right now, James is getting you ready for the game at the OSU Beaver store.
What's going on, Beaver Nation? It's James Dockery back at the OSU Beaver store, and this weekend is the granddaddy of them all, the Oregon State Civil War. It's going to be chilly outside, so come on down to the OSU Beaver store and check out some of this outerwear. We have long sleeves, hoodies right here with the new copper trim around the edges, and this one right here, my personal favorite, the gray and black. Again, wearing black this weekend, so this is a perfect item for you guys to come pick up. Come show your support at the Civil War. Let's get this win, Beaver Nation. We have everything you need here and more at the OSU Beaver store. Fans, start here.
So before the break, we were talking about that basic defense sign. Here it is, Nigel, and it's looking pretty good. Maybe we'll see one of those on Saturday.
Well, no, we don't want to see one of those because we was talking about how the U of O offense was basic. All I know is that Ohio State did not run the Kinko's in Norman when they made
it's
made
that. Nicely crafted sign.
Yeah, they made that at home, and we're like, yeah, we're about to show these dudes how basic we are.
They had plans to throw that up in the third quarter.
Exactly, as they were blowout central. So, yeah, let's. I'm glad that Tristan's got a lot of confidence, but let's Let's, yeah.
Get done first.
Yeah.
All right, well, now we're taking a look at some of the notable young players on both of these teams. Here's a look at the guys listed on the 2 deep for both the Beavers and the Ducks. Who do you feel like has the edge when you look at the future of the programs?
Well, I'll tell you what's missing from that Duck list is that 4 of their 5 starting offensive linemen are redshirt freshmen. That bodes well for the future for them. I didn't realize until right before the show. You know, I forget sometimes that Ryan Nall is a sophomore because he's so poised. He's obviously really good, but just the way he carries himself, it's awesome to think they get him for at least 1 more year.
Yeah, I think just because we don't really know who Marcus McMaryion really is. Is he the guy that we saw at the beginning, or is he this guy we saw last week? I think kind of the jury's out, because if you look at all the other positions, I think the Beaver fans can be really excited about the future when you look at not just him, but Artavis Pierce. You look at Seth Collins is only a sophomore, Trayvon Bradford. They got 2 starting offensive linemen that are both freshmen. So there's a lot of things. Xavier Crawford, who's probably one of their best defensive backs, if not the best. So you got a lot to be excited about. Obviously on the Ducks side, it's the guy who touches the ball every play, might be their best young player. So yeah, I think both programs are in this trajectory to really continue to run into each other and have it mean something at the end of the season.
When you're going up against a true freshman quarterback as a defensive coach, are you trying to do anything differently? Are you trying to rattle him anymore? I mean, or is it truly what every coach says, same old thing, day in, day out?
It depends on who the freshman is. There are certain freshmen that, yeah, you can do things. You can, have disguise. You can mess with them. It depends on, how their running game is. How much do you have to count for that? I don't think you can mess with Justin Herbert in the same fashion because, one, their offense is not predicated on him necessarily being successful. It's predicated on the run game. The run game clicks,
100%.
They click. If the run game doesn't click,
and it's been like that forever.
Yeah,
ever since they switched to this up-tempo stuff.
Exactly. So I don't think it's not the same animal.
I think the one thing we need to do if we can get to him, get in his head a little bit, is we need to hit him. When we get the opportunities to take a shot at him, whether he's just releasing the ball or if he decides to tuck it and run, we got to let him know that we're coming to mean business and try to knock his helmet off and let him know that people are coming to take him out.
You do that with any quarterback. Anytime you can get pressure on a guy early, hit him, make him uncomfortable, that's huge.
All right, we want to remind you, if you want to nominate your favorite Oregon or Washington K-12 coach, hop onto our website, csnnw.com/all-star coach to nominate somebody. The winner will be announced during halftime of the Blazers game, April 8th. And you have until December 11th to get those in. You can be an all-star coach like the one we have up here, Nigel. And after the break, we're going to give you our ingredients.
Why are we mean to Nigel, you guys?
Getting up a little early tomorrow for your tailgate. You can tune in to CSN Game Day. Lindsay will be on, Eric Fentress, the whole crew, tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. And then we're going to have a wrap-up show, Civil War postgame live at 4:30. And then the season finale of Talking Beavers will wrap everything up on Tuesday. Hopefully for Beavers fans, talking about another win. We'll have to see. Right now, we're getting to our Papa John's ingredients to victory. And if the Beavers score a touchdown in the game, you win the following Tuesday with Touchdown Tuesday. Just use the promo code Beaver7 for 50% off your online order at papajohns.com. Lindsay, we'll start with you.
Okay, I think that Oregon State needs to run for 250 yards. It sounds like a lot, but the Ducks give up 240 a game. So Ryan Nall, Artavis Pierce, maybe even Marcus McMaryion gets a few yards here and there. But the most important thing Marcus McMaryion needs to do is hang on to the ball. No turnovers. The Ducks have enough experience that they can take turnovers and turn them into points.
Piggybacking off of that, my first one was win the turnover battle. In a game like this, teams are pretty evenly matched. We expect it to be a close game. A lot of time in rivalry games, one big turnover, whoever turns the ball over more kind of sways the game in a direction or lets one team get a big play and get going. Beavers going to have to win a turnover battle. It's been a long time since the Beavers have won. Just whatever you need to do to get it done, make plays, go all out, just win the game.
Nigel.
My biggest thing is Marcus McMaryion has got to hold his own. Ryan Nall will get his. Artavis Pierce will help out. But in the end, there's going to be some critical third downs. Marcus has got to convert those. And obviously, the receivers have got to be huge in helping him out and making plays. I think the other thing is containing Royce Freeman. When the Beavers have had trouble in their run defense, a lot of it has to do with losing leverage and allowing running backs to hit the sideline and make small plays into big plays. They've got to do a great job of containing him and rallying to the football. If those things happen, Beavs win.
Do you think this is the year? Go down the line.
Yeah, I've said for a month that I thought Oregon State was going to win, and even though Royce Freeman looked really good last week, I'm not going to go back on that. So I say Oregon State by 3.
I like where the Beavs are at. I think they've built up to it for a couple weeks, put a complete performance, like we said, together last week, and I just think this young team's ready to come out and get a win.
Young teams thrive on energy, especially at home. So whatever you got to do at home when you show up to Reeser, seriously, take a 5-hour energy, drink a Rock Star.
All the things that Nigel does before the show.
Bang your head against the wall. Whatever you got to do, but be loud and get after those Ducks, man.
All right. Have a great night, everybody.
Send them flowers,
We'll
apparently.
see you next week.